On to this week's Dope People episode. Today we are featuring Chef Miguel Trinidad, a master chef, Dominican master chef, born and raised in the Lower East Side. So a true New Yorker, who's also the founder of the 99th Floor, a premier cannabis dining experience in New York City. Chef Trinidad is also known in the city as the mastermind behind Philippine cuisine restaurant Jeepney and Maharlika. He's also a James Beard finalist and chef and judge on the show Bong Appetit. Miguel's creativity in the kitchen mixed with a vast knowledge of cooking with cannabis makes for an experience for diners that is elegant and most importantly consistent. Join the Revel crew as we learn from New York native the key to creating a premium cannabis dining experience.
What up, Revel fam? We're back at it today, as Malulu just shared. It's with a lot of pride that we bring to you this Dominican chef, Miguel Trinidad, woo, in the house. We show up in New York more than any other place, I think, and our culture is insidious. And it's really nice to know we got somebody in the kitchen putting on for us because we got a lot of good food and we got just a lot of perspective to share. But I know this week we really just want to get into it, get the most out of this amazing guest. So without further ado, let's bring him on. Hey, Miguel, how you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing? Hello, Revel family.
Hey, Miguel. So a lot of folks might not know this, but when we were doing our in-person events, Chef Miguel was the provider and maker of many of the delicious treats and nibbles that we had for On the Revel in person. And he was also the host of many of our speaker luncheons that we have. So really excited to have you on the show today, Miguel, and really excited to talk to a native New Yorker. So what was it like growing up in the Lower East Side back then?
What was it like growing up in the Lower East Side back then? Nothing like it is now. The Lower East Side was not as pretty as it is today, and a lot of that is to the Mayor Giuliani era where he wanted to clean the city up. Back then, I remember, I grew up on Essex Street between Delancey and Rivington. So wow. Rivington Street from Essex to about Pitt Street was a drug haven. There was abandoned buildings. People were lining up, buying crack, a little hole in the wall. And you would see everything on that street. So, I had a strong Dominican mother who instilled in us certain values and also the fear of God if if we came anywhere close, which is funny because, cannabis was considered a gateway drug. In Dominican households, if you smoke weed, you were just as bad as, a heroin addict or crackhead, right? So shun upon. And here we are years later, and my mom's like, hey, can you make me some of those candies so I can sleep?
That's amazing. And before you became a chef, what were some of the other jobs that you had?
Before I became a chef, some of the jobs that I had, I graduated with a degree in photography. So I did that for a short spell, from model shoots to portraits to, like Rodney Dangerfield, traveling salesman, knocking on people's door, taking pictures of babies in their homes.
Wow.
That was one. I've been in the restaurant industry since I was 17, jumped back and forth. Bartending, management, front of house. I have worked in .coms, financial institutions, and I kept going back to the restaurant industry. It was something that I loved and really enjoyed. I broke off into catering and started my own company, which was doing very well before 9/11 happened. and most of the business just fizzled out. And that was a spark to go back to school and study culinary. So in 2005, I decided to go back to school. I was graduated in 2007, and from there it was just a roller coaster. From working in Soho, my first job, I started working, and 2 months later I was the executive chef of this place.
Nice.
I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. I had a strong work ethic, which was, acknowledged by the owners, and they happened to fire the chef, this amazing chef. They just clashed, and she quit. Sous chef quit, and I was left, and the owner offered me the position. I turned it down right away. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's only 2 months in. It's like, I have no idea. He's like, you know how to run a kitchen. I'll teach you the rest of the stuff. And that was the beginning of my career as a chef.
And it sounds like all of the experiences you had with your different lifetimes of different professions also probably helped, being an entrepreneur, talking to different people, being able to pick up things across the board. And a lot of new technologies, like being in the .com was always new. So I'm sure that prepped you to be able to take this new endeavor. As someone who grew up in a kitchen, also as a little kid, and knowing you on a more personal level, like, you have an amazing personality. You're very charismatic. You're so humble, and you're so just a people person. And I think that's one of the reasons why people consistently go back to 99th Floor is you bring that level of community and elegance and elevatedness, which you feel when you're at one of your dining experiences.
Well, damn, Lulu. I mean, you can't see it, but I'm blushing. Thank you so much for those kind words. I love people. I grew up in the Lower East Side. So as a kid, when I started working and I had a little extra pocket change, I would walk around the Lower East Side and I would go into restaurants that were different. I remember on Essex Street, there was a little restaurant, a little Jewish diner, hole in the wall. And I would walk in and I would ask questions like, what's that? And what's that? And the guy's like, here, he would give me a piece and I was like, get out. Right? So I was trying all these different things. And then I went to school in PS20, and one of my best friends was Chinese. So he would bring his little snacks. I remember dried squid. And
love that.
I was so intrigued by it. I'm like, what is that? And he's like, here. And I tried it and I loved it. So then he took me to a Chinese bodega, which was on Ludlow, and I would go and I would buy some of the snacks there and eat the stuff. Now my parents and my siblings, I was like, you're eating all this weird shit. And I'm like, well, taste it. It's not weird. It's just different. From the kugel at the Jewish restaurant to the Chinese snacks at the bodega to pierogies from the Polish, Puerto Rican food on Avenue D. There was this Chinese restaurant called Apollo on Clinton and Delancey that we would go to every weekend, right? That was our family night out. And every time we got there, they were having family meal. So the owner was this amazing guy, Vincent, and I would walk up to him and say, Vicente, what's that? He's like, he would give me some food to taste. So I was always intrigued by culture, food, different people. And I gravitated towards that. And that prepped me for my career in the culinary world. It's like knowing what people are all about. One of my biggest questions when I see a mixed couple is like, what's Thanksgiving like in your house?
That's beautiful that you had this natural curiosity and were open to, different cultures. And, when I first heard about you, I was like, Dominican chef, right? Making Dominican food. But I was really blown away that, you gravitated towards the Filipino side. So tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Well, that happened also at the first restaurant where I became chef. My business partner for Maharlika and Jeepney, we met there, and she just couldn't find a Filipino chef that believed in the movement, that believed that Filipino food would ever make it mainstream. And, I was there and I said, hey, why don't I give it a shot? And, we started our journey there. We traveled to the Philippines. We backpacked for 3.5 months, learned as much as we could from the most northern point to the most southern point, came back and really dove into it, doing these pop-ups in our apartment, her apartment, my apartment, and bringing people in from the outside just to see what the reaction would be. From there, we opened up our first pop-up, which was Maharlika, and we just opened up brunch. And in our third week, we got a write-up, which there was 160 people standing outside online.
Oh, wow.
And that was the birth of this craziness, this movement that, honestly, I had no idea that it would be as powerful as it was, that there was such a community that was really thirsty for something new, something modern. Filipinos love supporting Filipinos, and they're beautiful people. They're tight-knit, and there was a lot of support coming from them. Even towards me, being a Dominican, cooking their food, it was very important for me to do right by them, making sure that I was true to the food and didn't bastardize it. I wanted to bridge the gap between cultures, and that was our mission. And it was a successful run. It was great. From there, we moved on and opened up Jeepney and did a bunch of other things and wrote a cookbook and did a bunch of television appearances, won multiple competitions. And I have to say that it was a great time in my life. I didn't even cook Dominican food prior to that. Dominicans don't cook the Dominican food unless they go to their mother's house. Mom cooks it. But now, because of what we created with Jeepney, my next project will be working towards doing the same thing for Dominican culture. Right?
Nice.
So it's coming along, but there'll be a Dominican restaurant in the near future.
Nice. I'm really excited for that. So you've become an executive chef. You've opened restaurants. You've created cookbooks. You've been on many different types of shows. Talk to us a little bit about how your relationship with cannabis came to be and how that transitioned into hosting some really beautiful events and cannabis dining events for the 99th floor. How did that happen?
Well, how cannabis came to be in my life, I have to say it was because of these connections through the restaurants. So I had met DJ Neil Armstrong, right? If you're not familiar with him, he was a tour DJ for Jay-Z, Filipino, well-known, amazing individual, beautiful soul. He approached me and he said, listen, I'm working on this pilot where I'm going to be teaching people my skill in exchange for their skill. So we were going to swap lessons. I'd teach him how to cook,
That's
and
dope.
he would teach me how to DJ. Right?
Nice.
Now, this was fun because here's a Dominican teaching a Filipino how to cook Filipino food, right? And he's teaching me how to, spin records, which was great. There, I met my boys, my brothers, Doug Cohen and Mel Peralta, and they were producing this pilot. We hit it off. We're all from New York. We said we should do something together. A couple of weeks later, Doug calls me up and he's like, yo, how do you feel about cooking with weed? And I'm like, I love it. I love cooking with weed. He goes, yeah, but what do you know about it? I said, not much besides, brownies, cookies, that kind of stuff. He goes, what if we did something more on the savory end? I said, all right, let's do it. A few days later, we flew to LA and I got a crash course in every possible product that can be created from cannabis. So, for me, I knew about butters, right? That's it. And I got this crash course where I was introduced to distillates, terpenes, waxes, oils, shatters, resin, the rose water, the end products and the waste products, crystal. I mean, everything that I can possibly imagine, that you could possibly imagine. I had that crash course in 2 hours at this lab.
Wow.
And we all went out to dinner afterwards, and they challenged me and said, so can you cook with it? And I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can do it. They're like, all right, we rented a spot tomorrow. We're going to do a dinner. I went out to the farmer's market. I bought some stuff. I got all these ingredients. I went back to this restaurant. It was an old ramen spot. So
Nice.
Naturally, I'm like, all right, did a market salad where I infused some of the oils and terpenes into the dressing to make it extremely floral and bright. I did a tonkatsu ramen where we just slow cook that pork to get those bones and that broth, and put flour in that and oil and let that emulsify throughout the cooking process, keeping the temperature at the right temperature so never to degrade the THC. Right? And that was sick. And then to get kitschy, I did a sweet and sour diesel fried chicken. So we did this fried chicken that I sous vide with, some chicken fat that I stripped all the bones and skin. I made this chicken fat and infused that, and then sous vide the chicken in that. And then we dusted and fried it with Mondo powder and distillate, made this beautiful sauce with it. And it was the birth of 99th Floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm literally salivating as you're describing that. And one of the things I really loved when I went to your dinner was I never got too high, and I think that is a mystery for a lot of people, is how are you able to keep your doses consistent? Like, how do you determine what mgs to put in a full coursed meal?
That's a good question. How do I determine how to dose a meal milligram-wise? It's a fantastic question, because everybody who's probably had an edible in their life has probably had a bad experience. I would say about 90% of people. Yes, right? When I was testing our candies out, I did not have this device that I use. So I'm doing mathematics and using formulas based on the information that was provided by a dispensary, the potency of, the flour. What I thought was 17 milligrams was actually 170.
Oh, wow.
Which at that time knocked me on my ass. Today, I can easily eat 300.
Oh, wow.
Which, when I'm doing these dinners, it's like I'm tasting throughout the whole day. So it's like I have developed a strong tolerance. So I wanted to make sure, 99th Floor, we wanted to destigmatize cannabis, the universal language of food. And we did that by microdosing. We wanted to control the experience and make sure that whoever came to our events felt comfortable, was surrounded with like-minded people, and never got to a point where they were uncomfortable. So it's a nice high. It's a consistent high. It's something that it's kind of time release, because you're eating these foods. Some of them are rich, some of them are light. So by the time it gets processed through your liver, it might be an hour later once you leave the event, where you're really feeling or peaking, but it's still a comfortable peak. You start feeling the effects throughout the dinner. By dessert, by third course, everybody's giggling. By dessert, everybody's very happy. I get calls the next day. It's like, oh, that was amazing. I'm still high. Because we let people leave with a little tin of candies, letting them know that the tin of candies has more milligrams than the whole meal. So if you're one that has a very high tolerance, you can continue the experience once you leave, or you can save that for another day. The device that I use to measure these things is called a T-Check. And I mean, they're an incredible company. They had blessed me with the gift of their second generation machine, which connects to your phone via Bluetooth, and it's simple to use. You can measure fats, alcohols, and get a very consistent product and dosage every time. This is what I've been using for the past couple of years. So, big shout out to T-Check. Love what you guys are doing. Continue.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think all the at-home cannabis chefs out there, it's an amazing device, and it's going to create some more pleasant moments when you're experimenting. And so thank you for that tip, Miguel. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in New York right now. 99 Floors, you guys are back. Is that true?
Yeah, what's going on in 99 in New York these days is like 99 Floors back in full swing. We came out of this pandemic. We're still in it, but we're in a place where we feel more comfortable putting on these events again. We started about a couple of weeks ago. It was a success. It was great seeing previous clients that have come to our events, members that have been with us from the start. It was really, it felt good. It felt really good to see people and interact with them again. We made sure that we were in an environment that was safe, protected, made sure that everybody who attended our event was vaccinated, so there wouldn't be any fears of that. And thank you to all the 99 Floor members for always supporting and coming down vaccinated, really supporting what we wanted to do. So we're back in full swing, especially with legalization taking place and this whole process being figured out how it's going to work. It's an exciting time for us. It's an exciting time for New York in general, and everybody who's in the cannabis sector, who's playing around with, events and infused food and product. There's a lot that's going to happen, a lot that's going to change. I'm excited to see what's going on. So these are good times.
And if somebody wanted to attend one of your events, like how could they go about finding you guys?
Well, you can find us at on IG at 99th Floor. So that's 99THFL. Send us a message. You can also send us an email at info@99th Floor. There is a screening process. It's not open to everyone. It's people of like mind, people that, we love everyone, but these experiences, we don't allow smoking. So if you want to go to an event where you want to smoke all day, all night, that's not our event. Our events are more about the experience and the food and having those effects brought to you throughout the courses, educating people on microdosing and showing you that it doesn't have to be a brownie or a Rice Krispie treat. You can have an amazing meal that's infused and get the same effects without the paranoia, without the anxiety.
And so for example, I'd love to help our audience, like if say it was me and I wanted to host a cannabis dinner and cook for say about 8 people, because I think 8 is a good number before it gets crazy. Walk me through about how I would be able to kind of create a nice at-home type of cannabis dinner and hosting about 8 people.
I would say for the average home cook, a great way for you to do something like that is to infuse the food with additives. What I mean by that, you can have a cannabis butter, right? Find out what your milligrams per tablespoon might be, and use that to saute your vegetables, right? If it's too strong, you can always dilute it, right? So you can take a tablespoon of cannabis butter and 3 tablespoons of regular butter if that's what the recipe calls for. Find a good source for your recipes. If you're creative and you have your own recipes, the fats that you use, I would infuse those and use them to infuse the meal. For somebody who's more experienced, I really enjoy using a sous vide to infuse my meats prior to searing, because for me, in my experience, it just that fat permeates the meat, and you taste that flavor. and it's subtle. It's in the end, but you catch it, with a trained palate, and it gives you more control over temperature. You don't want to burn off the THC. You don't want to convert it into CBN. You want to control the temperature that you're cooking at in order to maximize the effect that you're going to get from cannabis.
Is there a preferred method that you like to use to infuse butters or oils?
Is there a preferred method that I like to use when I'm infusing butters and oils? It depends, If I'm doing a coconut oil, I like to do it on the stove. If I'm doing a butter, I like to clarify my butter before I do it, right? And I'll do that in a bag. I can sous vide it. I'll do it on the stove, depending what I'm looking for. So if I want a brown butter, I brown that butter, and then I use that and infuse it in the water bath at low temperature. I've also used devices like the Ardent, which is a great device if you don't know how to do it, and Levo, two excellent products that you can buy, and it makes things kind of foolproof for somebody who's a novice. It's a bit of an investment, but I think it pays off in the end. So do I have a favorite method? All of them, goddammit. It's hard to choose. It all depends what exactly it is that I'm looking for. But 90% of the time, I'm most likely sous videing the butters and fats.
And then how are you adding like the terpenes and stuff? Is it part of your oil or is it added as a separate thing? Can you break that down a little bit?
Absolutely. When it comes to terpenes, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of people in the industry. So I have terpenes that have been extracted, and I can use that to really get it to where I want it to be. But you're going to extract the terpenes in time. So, for instance, if you're making a distillate, let's say if you're making an alcohol tincture, you can extract all the THC from the flower in the first 4 minutes by washing it. And what that means, like you drop the flower in, you pour your high-grade alcohol solution, 100 proof or higher, so it can be vodka or Everclear, swish it around and wash it, for about 3 minutes, 4 minutes. You've extracted the THC. Okay? What you end up with is a clear liquid that has all your THC. Now you want to draw out the terpenes. Let it sit, The longer you let it sit, you're going to extract that plant matter from the flower, and you're going to extract that weediness, which is your terpenes. Right? In the first 4 minutes, you're not going to get much of that terpene profile because all you're really extracting is the THC. So again, you're pulling out that terpene by letting it sit longer. I know that when you let it sit longer, it gets a little murky, but there's methods where you can clean that up by running it through a coffee filter in order to get a clear liquid.
And then do you kind of use it just kind of like a spice that you add to your sauce or
a tincture can be used? But a tincture can be used in different ways. If it's an alcohol tincture, it makes a great sublingual if you can dilute it and flavor it the way that you want. Putting a tea bag, whatever your favorite tea is, adding some honey, some lemon, lemon zest will give you a flavor profile that you like, and then dilute it because the grain alcohol can be pretty strong. If you're using an MCT oil or coconut oil, that I prefer using tinctures as a topical, so a dressing, something where I'm not applying heat to it. Works really well with terpenes. With tinctures, because you're not going to burn off that alcohol. You're not going to damage the THC. You're still going to get that.
Yeah,
you can probably. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Oh no, that's just that's such an important point to make because I don't hear a lot of people talking about that. With these different infusion methods, we do crash out or destroy the terpenes and some of these other compounds that are within the cannabis flower. So I was curious as to your philosophy on taking your infusions from the original flower and then recapitulating with the meal. Because terpenes exist in all foods, or fruits and vegetables and such. And so do you try to stay honest to the strain? And if you got some limonene in the strain and you infuse something with it, you try to recapitulate that in the meal by adding in a lot of citrus fruits and things like that? Or what's like your philosophy on, I guess, staying true to the strain and the terpenes and the entourage effect that come with it?
Well, that's an excellent question. All right. Do I stay true to the strain when I'm cooking? And I would say this: yes. Right. The strain determines how I'm going to cook or what I'm going to cook. So if you have something that's strong in limonene, yeah, I'm going to go, that citrus route. I'm going to look for some bright fish, some ceviches, some crudos, beautiful octopus, things that are going to pair well with that strain. If it's high in myrcene, of course, I'm going to go towards the earthy notes, that richness, the lambs, that brown butter, a port wine sauce, all right? Things that'll bring out that pepperiness that you're going to get from the bud and really showcase the flower, because the flower is what I'm showcasing, right? The food is just that vessel that's delivering that THC to you. So I want you to taste it. Some people go, hey, I don't taste it. I'm like, close your mouth for a second, look at me in the eyes, open your mouth, and just breathe in. And they're like, okay, oh, I get it. I get it now. I'm like, yeah, I want to fuck with your palate. I want to really fuck with your palate and blow it away. I want you to have that lingering finish that's going to make you come back for more. And when you go to another cannabis event, enjoy it, but say, damn man, 99th floor, shit. Yeah.
No, I love to hear that kind of intention and how you're treating the plant almost like just another ingredient. Like you would build a whole meal around that you would have, like if you went to the farmer's market and picked something that was really beautiful, in season, you would design something around it. And I think for me, that's what makes your dinners better than a lot of the other ones I've gone to, where the main purpose of the cannabis dinner is to just get you high, Yeah. And I love your dinners. I really do. I've been to a couple of different ones, and just to hear you talk about
Blushing.
kind of like the thoughtfulness, that's important, and I do also love the fact that, throughout your dinners, you're also teaching and, having this shared experience of breaking bread, and learning about the food. And when you do speak about the dishes, you show the love, and it's very clear that you're an educator and you're in the space to help destigmatize through the belly, but also through, just teaching us, like, what are we eating, and just being a conscious consumer and knowing what we're putting into our body, including the strains and, why you're using them for the meal as well.
Thank you. I'm blushing again.
I haven't had the pleasure to go yet, but I'm willing to break my vegetarianism in order to participate in the next one. I'm on the mailing list. So
you know what? You don't even have to break it in order to participate, because we do vegetarian options. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to alienate you guys.
Peter's eyes just got big.
I didn't see it. That must have been my bad. Oh, wow.
No. It's not all the time, because we do have specialty nights. 420, for instance, was an all beef night. We got some A5 Wagyu, flew that back to the States, and put on this whole meal with this delicate piece of meat, and that was fantastic. But one of our best dinners, which was before COVID struck, we did a Dominican night, and I made a Dominican menu and paired everything with a vegan option.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful.
Oh my God, it was great. First of all, it was the first time that I was actually cooking Dominican food. So it was very important for me to get this shit right. It's like, I got to do right by mom, okay? I got to do right by my Dominicans, because there was a lot of Dominicans that were coming to the event. And I'm like, I got to do this right, because if it's wrong, I'm dead. You know, they'll never let me live it down. On top of that, I wanted to show the creativity and the diversity of Dominican food, Dominican cuisine, by making everything, mirroring it vegetarian. So that was fun. It's like, you know, how do you manipulate a heart of palm, to have that texture of octopus? You know, octopus salad mirrored heart of palms.
You could do that?
Oh, yeah. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do. With,
the heart of palms for octopus. You know, I love me some pulpo.
Yo, yeah, man. It's like, you know, ensalada de pulpo, pero con palmitas, right? Yeah. You know, dehydrated, rehydrated, so now it has a little bit of texture. It was sick. It was a lot of fun. I'll tell you that the vegetarian sancocho, I thought, was better than the meat one.
Wow.
Wait, what is sancocho?
So sancocho is, man, it's like the quintessential stew in Dominican Republic. It's a poor man's stew. It's like you're taking all the minor cuts, all the leftover stuff, and you're braising this meat with root vegetables for a very long time until it's super tender and flavorful. And whenever somebody's making sancocho at home, it's a party. Okay, because they start cooking it, you know, mid-afternoon. It's done at night when the party's really jumping. Everybody's had enough to drink. A bowl of sancocho, back to the dance floor to burn it off. Right?
My family jokes that it's seasoned by the family, because everyone takes a taste while it's cooking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to invite next time you guys make that.
Okay, you got it. You know, yeah, that's something that it's due. I had one in Dominican Republic, but the family hasn't made one in a while, so it's overdue.
Nice. One of the things, you know, we try to do on our show is, you know, for aspiring entrepreneurs to learn from existing entrepreneurs. So can you give a perspective if somebody was trying to create something similar for consumption? Could you give some maybe stories of things you wish you would have known, and some lessons learned to help people navigate this path?
You're talking if people wanted to do dinners.
Some people wanted to do dinners, yeah.
So for young entrepreneurs that are out there and want to learn the do's and don'ts of putting on a cannabis dinner or starting a cannabis business of infused meals, my best advice to you is really understand dosing and understand your audience. Know where you want to be. If you want to be the dinner that's known because it's gonna knock you on your ass, that's fine. If you want to be the one where people smoke and eat, that's fine. Know where you want to be and stick to it and be true to it. There's going to be complications wherever you're at, but as chefs, as people who cook, I don't believe in no's, and I don't believe it's a problem. I just believe we have to figure out the solution. Okay? And that's the best advice I can give you when it comes to this. In the end, it's weed. Share what you know with everybody else, because that's what the flower is all about. You know, it's sharing, it's community. So share your knowledge so we can all lift each other. Okay? Don't think that you're the best, because there's always going to be somebody who can outcook you, outperform you, and might know something that you can learn from them. So you coming into this, come in with an open heart, absorb as much as you can, and share that information.
That's beautiful.
So catering and restaurant businesses is notoriously difficult because costs are so all over the place, and the logistics of having a venue, getting the food there, keeping it warm, etc. This wouldn't be Revel if we didn't break it down on how do you calculate those costs? Because now you're having a super expensive ingredient in weed. Then you're having an infuse. Maybe the chef isn't that good. How do you take it from inception to cost per ticket? And how do you think about all those dynamics?
How do we break down our costs? What do we think about the price of the ticket? How do we control these costs? Another very important question. When we decide where we're going to host this event, the price per venue is something that we have to consider, right? We want to keep our ticket price at an affordable. We want to keep our tickets affordable, so we want to make sure we can stick in that 150 to 200 mark. Venues is very important. Just like any restaurant, you have to break it down into quarters. Your food should be about 20%. Okay? Your labor should be about 25%. Then you have your fixed cost, which is the venue, any rentals that you might need, and then what's left over is profit. It's not going to be a huge amount. I know that these people think we'll put on a huge event, we're going to make a big chunk. There's a lot of things that you have to consider, and you break it down into those categories and make sure you stick to it. When you have extra money to play with, you put that money into your food. Okay? You always want to cook with the freshest ingredients, the best things that are around. But the beauty about being a chef is that sometimes, we're not going to be able to get the hamachi that we want. We might have to get something else. And playing around with lesser cuts is where the creativity and the technique comes into play. Because how can I make beef cheek taste absolutely fantastic like ribeye? How can I get it that tender, right? How can I take a simple vegetable and turn it into something that's phenomenal? How can I change the texture? How can I manipulate the food? That's where the artistry of cooking comes into play. And you want to make sure that when you are presenting to somebody, they are leaving both visually satisfied, palate-wise, they're satisfied, and it was an overall experience.
Oh, that you broke it down. I appreciate that.
And
Sorry,
Chef
I felt
Miguel,
like
no, that's perfect. But how would you give recommendations on how to find a venue? How did you start?
There's a lot of websites that you can hit to find venues. Also, look in your neighborhood where you're hosting it. It's always easier if it's closer to you than a venue where you have to transport everything further away. So a lot of venues will offer you some prep space, but look in the neighborhood that best suits your needs. Search the internet. Right now, things are really tight, and the prices have gone up since since the city has started reopening. But I'm pretty sure that'll change in the next 6 months. As more locations begin to open up, prices should drop.
Okay, yeah, inflation I know is hitting restaurants really hard. It's really sad,
Right.
but hopefully that stuff levels out with time. Switching over, I wanted to talk about one of me and my sister's passions, and that is binging Bong Appetit. She's on her way of starting a culinary career, and we really loved the show. It taught us so much, especially the way you guys went about it. But I want to ask you, as a judge and a participant, what was your favorite dish, or what dishes stand out to you, and the creativity that those guys had? Well, you must have been learning right alongside them.
Yeah, there was a lot of talent on that show, and there was so many items that were really amazing. Like, they blew your mind away. But the ones that stick out the most are the two older ladies, like the grandmothers who came on the show and cooked, and never cooked with cannabis at all. Right? There was this Mexican lady who made these albondigas. And this is like the memory. I can smell it. I can taste it. It's just a meatball, right? But this was no ordinary meatball. I mean, it just took you places. It made you feel warm all over. It made you want to come back for more. It felt like you went to your grandma's house and you got a hug. Okay. And then there was Josephine Polito, who came on the show, and she made these cookies, these Italian cookies, right? And it just felt like you got patted on the cheek. It was so good. You felt all the love in this food. You just wanted to hug these women, and you know, we did, of course. But those are the ones that really stand out. It was simple, yet there was so much love and passion put into it. These women took an ingredient that they did not ever use, and they did amazing stuff with it.
That's dope. That's dope. Not everyone has a pantry as intricate and complex with so many assortment of items that are all infused. What would you consider to be the staples of infused products for those in their home kitchen?
Well, staples, of course, you know, your olive oil, your butter, your coconut oil. But I think for meat eaters, you should definitely have some infused bacon fat in your pantry.
Ooh,
Because that is nice.
definitely.
In both, yeah, you can play around with it with so many different ways in both savory and sweet applications. You know, candied bacon. I did a bacon ice cream for shits and giggles. That was fucking amazing, right? You can whisk it into your mayonnaise, your butters, your nut butters. It's great. So yeah, that's a staple that I advise everybody to get some, make some.
My sister, she has some of these staples, but she's always asking me about preservation and storage. So I don't know if you have any insight on that end, because I just tell her, no, it's all right. Just treat it like any other oil or fat.
I mean, yeah, you can treat it like any other oil fat, but there is some degradation, depending on how you store it. If you're going to store your olive oils in a clear bottle and it's exposed to light, you're going to break it down a whole lot faster than if it was in a dark green bottle or brown bottle and stored in a cabinet in a dark place. Butters, yeah, refrigeration. Then playing around with your butters also, you know, you can ferment it a little. And a certain flours, this was a beautiful mistake. After cooking one day, I had some leftover butter, and instead of refrigerating it, I put it in the cabinet. And it had yeast in it, and this thing fermented, and when I opened it, it smelled like blue cheese. That made an excellent meal. We had a lot of fun with that one. So
What
like,
did you do with it? What did you do with it?
Well, we played around simple things, right? So one of the things was just cooking white rice with it to see what kind of flavor you got. So it's like you get this rice, and it's rice. It looks like rice, but everybody smells it and say it smells like blue cheese, right? And you can taste the blue cheese, and it's rice. So you're fucking with the mind. You just like plain. It's like you keep going in, smelling this blue cheese, expecting to get this like chunk of blue cheese somewhere, and no, it's just a nice mellow rice with this perfume of blue cheese from fermented butter.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
I'm sorry, I'm like geeking out and thinking of all the wonderful things that we've done. I mean, there's been so many crazy things that we've done just playing around. And, you know, I know a lot of chefs in the industry, and you pick each other's brains and you talk about how to one up the next one. You know, it's like, this one was great, but how can we do better? This one was great, we need to do better. And then every once in a while, you're like, let's take it back a notch, you know, way back, and really show respect to the beginning.
Yeah, I love that, you know, that whole concept of there's no unhappy accidents, but it's that kind of way
Right.
that you frame things about like, oh, wow, this was not expected, but let me take this opportunity to see what this is about. And I think that's a really important headspace to be when you want to open a cannabis facility, license, business, because there's so many unexpected things that happen in the cannabis space. So having that type of mindset to, it's okay to make mistakes and there's always a lesson to come from that. And let me take that and explore something else is I think one of the reasons why you are a successful entrepreneur, and especially in this cannabis space as well.
Thank you.
I
will say to everybody who's looking out there, who's very curious about this, I challenge you all, right? Everybody makes sweets. Everybody will make the cookies, brownies, Rice Krispie treats. Okay? I challenge you to make a Rice Krispie treat that is not overloaded with sugar and frosting and so compact that you can't chew it. I challenge you guys to play around with that, and I promise you that you will have a better understanding of how to use butters when you play around with a simple thing like Rice Krispie treats. You can change the flavor, texture easily when you mix it with the marshmallows, and playing around with it will be a lot of fun.
I feel like we should create a new show with Chef Miguel's challenges for cooking.
All of you make some Rice Krispie treats and tag Revel, okay? in the Revel, yeah.
Please do. Well, thank you so much for everything today, Chef. We're really excited that you guys are back up again and at 99 floors on Instagram, or 99th floor, excuse me, on Instagram. Yeah. And we cannot wait to attend when we come back to New York. So thank you everyone for joining tonight. Next week, next Wednesday night, we have the CEO and founder of Magical Butter, which is one of a machine that actually can do some of the infusions. But before we go, Chef Miguel, could you tell us a little bit more about what is on the horizon for you in 99th floor?
Well, on the horizon for us, we are, really putting the pedal to the metal, so they say, to get our product line out. So that should be out in the next 6 months, 8 months, a year. We really want to launch in New York, but it'll be a couple of years before that happens. So pretty soon we'll be, distributed in other states.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Thank you and have a beautiful night, Chef Miguel. Thank you, Revel family. Thank you, viewers. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.